Good morning, everybody. This is the Personal Playlist Podcast, fondly referred to as the P3 on Voice Ed Radio. I'm Noah Daniel.
Music is a world within itself, with a language we all understand.
Music really is a world within itself, but it's a language that we could understand if we talk to each other about it, because it's a unique language that says a lot about the self. And that's what this podcast is about. It's a way to bring a piece of yourself through music choices. 3, in fact. A nostalgic song, a song that says who you are, your identity, and a song that picks you up when you're feeling low, your theme song. And I'm so excited to have Stephen Hurley as my very first guest as we explore music together. Hi, Stephen.
Noah, it is great to be your first guest and great to be here. This is a fantastic idea.
Oh, thank you. Well, it's actually a project that I've done with my grade 7s for many years. And when we were talking about it, it just felt right. So let's see how it goes. Has music been impactful in your life?
Oh my gosh. Music is the medium that impacts me the most. And you can catch me emotionally connected to songs most of the day. If not from a real radio or a real CD or a real audio source, then in my mind. And I've always had a connection with music. I'm a musician by heart. It was my way of being as a child and still is. But I have such memories of music, where I was, what I was doing, when a song comes on the radio, that I know it's not just a song. It is a whole bundle of memories and emotions, actually.
Mm-hmm. It's amazing that you said you remember where you were, because I think that music plays on a lot of senses. And I think that it really can be the backdrop of so many of the experience of your lives, or the forefront. So the idea of the show is you sent in 3 songs, one that's nostalgic, one that says a lot about who you are, your identity song, and one that picks you up when you're feeling low. You can do it in any order that you want, but why don't you introduce one of the songs and why you chose it?
Okay, so the first song I sent you came out onto the charts in 69 and 70, 1969, 1970. So from the previous century. And I was in grade 4, going into grade 5 at the summer of 1970, I believe. Yeah, because I was in grade 3 in 68, so 69. So I would have been going into grade 4 or 5. But it was the summer, and Vanity Fair's "Hitchin' a Ride" came out, and I completely remember this song because it was the first time I ever called a radio station to request a song. And I didn't particularly, it wasn't the best song.
Which radio station was it?
The radio station was in Brampton. It was called CHIC, Chick Radio, and their tagline at the time was CHIC, where the girls are. They had all-girl DJs, and they kind of got to play whatever they wanted. There was no set format, but you could call in. CHIC later became CFNY, and was the home to many edgy people.
I remember it well.
Yeah. So that was out of Brampton, and it was in a house on Highway 10, here Ontario Street. And there's so many, I can remember.
I used to go to Wave concerts.
Oh, did you?
Yeah,
okay.
and we just listened to that. Yeah, sorry, go on.
Yeah. Yeah, so I remember picking up the phone, and it was a black dial phone that was mounted on our wall at home. And I don't think my mother was around. She must have been somewhere else, because I spent about an hour dialing that phone, trying to get into the radio station, because they would open up the request lines, and her name was Melanie, the DJ. I remember clearly. And I remember dialing it and being shocked when it started to ring. So shocked that I almost hung up the phone. And she said, CHIC, where the girls are, Melanie. And I said, could you play Vanity Fair, Hitching a Ride? And she said, sure, I'll get it on for you. And so I waited about 20 minutes and listened, and she said my name, and she said the song. And of course, I was Steve at the time, because Steve was much cooler than Steven. But so this song has memories for me because of the connection with the radio station, and that's also the summer that I started playing around with a radio station in my room because it was there that I discovered that I loved radio and I wanted to be on the radio. So that was my first foray into being on the radio. My name was on the radio. CHIC, where the girls are. Vanity Fair, hitching a ride.
All right, well, let's play a piece. That was amazing. I could feel the excitement, the exuberance of hearing that song playing on the radio. It was a really powerful thing to be able to call in and get that responsiveness.
Well, and that's what I've always found about radio is that there is a sense of responsiveness, especially when it's live, obviously. I remember phoning into to radio shows that I thought were live but weren't, and they just kind of left you hanging on the line, and they didn't tell you that they weren't live. But it's like on Voice Ed Radio, you say, well, it's Saturday morning when it might not be Saturday morning. It might be like Monday afternoon. But that's that song, and just listening to it again, amazing feeling. And I don't know what happened to Vanity Fair, and it really doesn't matter. I think that song has actually come back in a couple of movies since. Thanks for bringing back that memory.
It's amazing, actually, how movies can do that. It's funny, my daughters were watching 13 Going on 30, and it has a fantastic soundtrack of my life. And I was thinking about how exciting it is to hear my children singing Pat Benatar in the back of my car. I was really excited about that. Anyway, I'm so happy to go through that nostalgia with you, because clearly you got to be on the radio. So that we've come full circle. What about circle. The song? Sorry, what?
Yeah, full circle. I think that's really cool.
It's amazing how that happens. So what about the song that you chose for your identity song? What's the story that goes with that?
Okay, so this was a no-brainer because I tell people this is my theme song. I've told people this for years, and it's the only song. Actually, I played in a rock and roll band a few years ago for about 5 years, and this was the one song that they allowed me to play. And sing at the same time, So usually I'm just a piano player in the background, and I love to be in the background. But this song I first heard the opening piano chords to this song when I was in a music store in Square One, Mississauga, in the mid 70s. And I was a piano player, I was taking piano lessons. But this girl that worked there, she thought she was all that, and she sat down and played the opening of this song, and I had never heard it before. And it was amazing. It was like, okay, what are those chords? It goes from a tonic and then down to the 7, and they were simple chords, but it was just magical. And then I heard it again. I remember hearing it again in 1977. I was sitting at the Mississauga campus of U of T on a Sunday, and I shouldn't have been there because the whole of Mississauga was being evacuated because of a train derailment. And
That's
I was
terrible.
sitting listening to campus radio, and this song came on, and I said, "There it is again." How many years later? A couple of years later, I guess. But the song is by the Eagles, and it's Desperado. And I'm not embarrassed to say that it is my identity song because it talks about someone being closed to life, being closed to love, seemingly not satisfied with anything that's in front of them, but sort of just wanting something else. And it's my song because most of the things in my life until rather recently, until about the last decade, most of the good things in my life I've run away from or walked away from and let them go. And it was so this song really resonates because if I had enough guts, I would have had it played at my wedding because my getting married later in life, that was my decision to stop running away from things or stop walking away from things or pushing things out of my life. And so my wife Zoe is the result of that. My kids are the result of that. And so Desperado, those opening chords still send shivers. And even to sing this song in public and not have people know what it means to me is a little ironic and a little surreal. So it's nice to get this off my chest and tell people that this is why I love the song, because it does have such personal impact on me, and it's such a personal part of my narrative.
It's interesting that you can look back at that time in your life from where you are now and really celebrate it. And I think I'd really like to see you sing it, hear you sing it one day, but I guess we'll settle for the Eagles for now. So here's Desperado.
Desperado, why don't you come to your senses? You've been out riding fences for so long now. Oh, you're a hard one, but I know that you got your reasons. These things that are pleasing you can hurt you somehow. Don't you draw the queen of diamonds, boy. She'll beat you if she's able. You know the queen of hearts is always your best bet. Now it seems to me some fine things have been laid upon your table, but you only want the ones that you can't get. Desperado, oh, you ain't getting no younger. Your pain and your hunger, they're driving you home. And freedom, oh, freedom, well, that's just some people talking. Your prison is walking through this world all alone. Don't your feet get cold in the wintertime? The sky won't snow and the sun won't shine. It's hard to tell the nighttime from the day. You're losing all your highs and lows. Ain't it funny how the feeling goes away? Desperado.
I had to play the whole thing because, I mean, I've only met you in person once, and I can't imagine how powerful a song this must be for you, especially because you can play and sing it. So I was visualizing. How did that feel to share right now?
Yeah. Well, I'm doing the air conductor thing here, and especially when the drums come in, that's such a powerful thing. And when I did this with the band, I insisted that it was just piano, not because I was playing, just because that's the way. And then on that last refrain, the drums coming in. Just incredibly powerful. Yeah. So thanks for that. And I don't mean to get too heavy on you with this stuff. I feel a little embarrassed, but not really.
No, you really shouldn't. And, in my classroom, when my grade 7s do this, for some of them, it's hard. This is personal, but it's also a beautiful journey. And we create a safe space for everybody to share just like this. So I hope that you feel comfortable with me sharing this story because, music really is part of our lives. And if we find that soundtrack, then we can relive pieces of our lives, sometimes joyfully, sometimes in sorrow, but it's all really helpful in the reflection process and in that the sense of who you are and where you've come from. So I actually do this. I've watched many students do this in different ways. And the nostalgia song is always playful and reminiscent of something wonderful. And the identity song can really be anything. And it's intense because you're picking one song of a landscape of possibility to choose to represent you. So it's a critical thinking task, but it's also an extremely personal task. So thank you so much for sharing that.
Well, and as I said at the beginning,
the theme song. Oh, yeah.
Sorry, as I said at the beginning, it was a no-brainer for me. That's like as soon as you mentioned it, I said, okay, that's the one. That's the one.
That's the part that's so exciting. When you talk to people about music and you ask them a question as simple as, and really this is a universally designed task, right? It's a very simple idea that a student or a person brings to the table, these 3 songs, but it's what the individual brings to it that makes it such a powerful experience. In the same way that you knew exactly what song you were going to sing and you lit up the second we started talking about it. So yes. It made me want to explore this with you. And going through this, it made me nostalgic for my grade 7 English class when we used to do this, and this was part of the week. And when my students did a video recording that I actually have on my website about the power of this experience, I knew it in the room. I just didn't know the longevity of it. And I didn't know the depth of it until I heard them tell the story. And so I'm glad that it's meaningful to you too. The theme song idea came out of the notion, and I was doing a lot of work in the school with self-esteem, that music is so powerful and it really can lift you up when you're feeling low. So it was a way to help kids channel their own self-regulation, I guess, to find that song that when things got rough or when school was difficult to navigate, they could go home and rock out to that tune and change direction or understand what they were feeling or really truly pick themselves up. So we would make a recording at the end of the year of everybody's theme songs so we could take it home with us. But then the next year, we were doing a You Are Awesome theme through this Respectful School 360 that I helped to create. And we had a playlist that the kids could add to that was their You Are Awesome Pick Me Up playlist. And then the teachers wanted in and the parents wanted in. And it was so fun that I ended up creating another Bob Around music because music really is. It's so very, very powerful. So your theme song, how does it fit into your life in terms of a pick me up experience?
So the theme song of my times when I need to be picked up goes back to my last year of university, I do believe. It could have been the second last year. Anyways, do you remember those spring days, those first spring days where you would just get in that car when you first had your license, you would roll down the windows or turn them down if they were electric, and you just have a song blasting and you hoped everybody noticed you, but it didn't matter because you just felt good in those early days of spring and spring love. And university was great because it was, April, the year was coming to an end and spring was springing. And so this song, I remember the first time I heard it, I was driving again to the Mississauga campus, which at the time was called Arundel College, Mississauga, University of Toronto, and they were basically two buildings and a pub, a Quonset hut that was a full-time pub. And I was driving back to the school in the afternoon to go to the library, which really was code for going to the pub. And this song came on the radio, and there was something about it that just captured my imagination. I really didn't know what it was about at the time, but the guitar, just that unique Dire Straits guitar, it just caught me. It caught me off guard. I rolled down the windows, I cranked it up, and every time I have heard it since, I remember that spring drive, and it has the exact same effect on me. So the Sultans of Swing, it's not a deep song, but it is a song about the power of music and the power of music in the lives of the people that play it, and potentially the power of music. It could have been their first single. It was certainly the first single that I remember, and it lives on in my heart. And I sometimes picture myself as one of those band members on that stage, I'm assuming in London, but one of the Sultans of Swing, Dire Straits.
Okay, well, let's play it out and smell in that carpe diem feeling of spring on the horizon.
Exactly. Yeah, thanks.
A shiver in the dark, it's raining in the park. Meantime, sound of the river, you stop and you hold everything. A band is blowing Dixie, double fall time. You feel alright when you hear the music ring. Well, now you step inside, but you don't see too many faces. Coming in out of the rain, they hear the jazz go down. Competition in other places. But the horns, they blowing that sound. Way on down south. Way on down south, London town. Check out Guitar George, he knows all the chords. Mine is strictly rhythm, he doesn't want to make it cry or sing. If there no guitar is all he can afford, when he gets up under the lights to play his thing. And Harry doesn't mind if he doesn't make the scene. He's got a daytime job, he's doing alright. He can play the honky-tonk like anything, saving it up Friday night with the Sultans, with the Sultans of Swing.
I have that smile, and I can picture the wind coming through the window and the smiles from ear to ear, because there's so much hope, there's so much left to do, and there's so much to look forward to. What a great song choice.
Isn't that great? And it just gets, I'm bopping around here. I nearly unplugged the microphone system here in my studio. So thank you for that. I needed that today.
Oh, isn't that wonderful? And I guess sometimes, we do need that, whether it's taking a journey inside ourselves and figuring out the exact song to answer the question, or it's listening to the music and getting that feeling, or trying to get somewhere and using it for directionality. So I'm excited that we're going to have these kinds of conversations with people.
Can I say something about music, and I love lyrics, and I get really agitated when I'm introducing someone to a song or say, can you listen to this? And then they proceed to talk over it. It kind of reminds me of those days when you brought an album home, a record album home. And in those days, you couldn't jump from track to track very easily. So you basically sat and listened to an album with your friends. And I was always the guy who got frustrated when people started talking during a song, because I was really into the lyrics and wanted them to be as affected by them as much as I was often. And I find that even with my own kids, if they're talking over a song that I really want them to hear because the lyrics are either funny or poignant or something like that, it's just something that I'm really, really sensitive about listening to the whole song, and that includes the words and the music.
Don't you go through different parts of yourself, though, when you're listening to a tune sometimes, when you're listening just to the music, or you're isolating it to a specific instrument, or then you're really focusing on the lyrics? Like, don't you find that you have different experiences with the music at different times, depending on where you're at?
Yeah, I suppose you're right. But I find I always, I generally listen to it like as a whole thing, as an entity. I do sometimes sit and listen if I'm trying to figure out a piece of music, try and listen for the bass riff or the keyboard riff. I have a sort of a little studio here, a keyboard and computer stuff, and lots of neat software to do that with. So often I'll be trying to take songs apart, and but when I'm listening and enjoying music, it's difficult for me to separate the whole thing. It's more of a symphonic approach. Was it Daniel Pink that wrote A Whole New Mind? And he talks about that concept of symphony. Yeah. And
it's amazing. I think about it for education. There is often this perfect symphony of people and content and context, and it's poetry. Like, there's just no other way to explain it. I mean, this project was an example of that. But it's funny, when I read that book, I was really into One of My Bob's Master Storyteller, and that book really taught me about the power of story.
Yes.
And it's interesting, actually, this morning I read Debbie Donsky's new post about narrative in terms of school improvement planning. And I think that these stories around songs are going to be really interesting journeys for people to be sharing in this format. And I hope that everybody will rise to the occasion like you have, to really tell these fantastic stories about yourself and about different spaces in your life and different times that you need it and different experiences you have when you listen to it. So however you listen to the music or choose the songs that you're going to share, I hope that people will share and use this platform to go back and forward and just be.
Well, thank you for this opportunity, and thanks for allowing me to be the first in.
Allowing you were a part of this spark. I couldn't wait to do this. And it's funny, my husband said, don't you want to spend the whole day with me? And I said, I do, but I really, really want to do this too. So here we are doing this, and I feel wonderful, and I feel filled up and lit up with joy, because music is powerful, and it's its own language, and it tells your story. So that's what the Personal Playlist podcast is all about. P3 is a shout out to my PS3 series, my Tribobs, where the personal soundtrack was the second one, and now it's this. So Stephen, thank you so much for being here. I'm so happy that you shared your story, the first ever Personal Playlist podcast, the P3, a shout out to the PS series, a Tribob that starts with the portrait of yourself, personal soundtrack, and evolves to photosynthesis. And we basically took the personal soundtrack and made it into something about educators, where they can bring their nostalgic song, their identity song, and their theme song to the conversation and see where it takes you. Where words fail, music speaks. Hans Christian Andersen said that, and now I say, have a fabulous day.